We were examining our own entertainment area. Yes. Excuse me. Sorry about the coughing. Still clearing my throat this morning. So... yeah, we did need to do a little more poking around our own domicile. And I was really thrown. So apparently there's a staircase. You can see it here, right? There's the staircase that gets you into this area. And now it's on the right-hand side, right? And I not only couldn't see that, but I assumed that it wasn't there because there's a staircase that goes all the way around this area. You were really thrown. Unless you mean me. So anyway, I think we're going to start by consuming the rest of this material about the trial, which we did not fully consume, or even begin to consume, before we first started time traveling. Excuse me. Alright. Now we do need to mark down the order number of the cheese girl. If you want to be my throne, that's fine. Well, that's very kind of you. You didn't happen to mark it down last time, did you, Lexi? More time, TV. It's the world's first interactive news network. I'm sure that's true. So, I think, was it the Louvre auction that gave us the sponsor message? I would appreciate it, yes.
After a word from our sponsor.
I mean, I guess I should too, huh? Let's both do it. I'm much more impressed with this game than I was before we discovered this this collection of broadcasts and news stories.
Cheese girl!
Because there's a fair amount that we actually put together. Zankoth, sounds like Zankoth might fulfill your wish, Lexi. Alright, 625 94978. Send PO to Raleigh Chemical Co. Sector 17. 115-895 350 plus 25 credit, 0.25 credit, ShopNet surcharge. Okay. Gotta make sure we did that right. We don't want a Super Mario Maker 2 mishap. And Dagger Steve shows up at the same time, yes. So hello, and Tom, goodness gracious. Should get over my cough, shouldn't I? So, as far as we can tell, don't know how much you know about the backstory here, but we have been framed. We are a temporal security agent who does deep time research. Somebody appears to have visited all our historical research locations and taken things from them, which you're not supposed to do. And it seems like they may have also put other things in their place which are from the similar time periods from the present. One of these mission sites is a space station, and for some reason our coordinates don't warp us to the interior of the space station, but to the exterior, which is not good for your health. So when we go there, we can still breathe for a short moment, but we can't move, so we need some kind of propulsion system. And we think that this product, this is just our own logic working here, might be the thing that we need. Which is kind of funny and clever and a bit covert, so I'm really hoping that turns out to be the answer. Cheese Girl gets the people flocking. Yep, so good morning Steve, Tom, and Zankoff as well. And you all showed up, in case you couldn't tell, at about almost exactly the same time, certainly within the same minute. So, how coordinated of you.
In a last-ditch effort to stay afloat, the Louvre Art Museum held an auction of unprecedented scale yesterday. The museum was forced to sell off many of its older collections to pay off creditors and to raise funds desperately needed for renovations to the facility.
So we're going to skip that because we examined those stories last time. Agent 5 is us. We were under house arrest. And we broke it to contact our self 10 years ago. Because we thought our self 10 years ago was our only hope. And we are in the body in this game of the 10 years ago version that was recruited. And we've been brought back to the recruiter's present time to do this investigation on our own behalf. So we've looked at this story, we've looked at this story. We have not looked at symbiotic technology discussions or the Sinclair incident 10 years later. This was the plot of the Journeyman Project 1, which we had previously completed. So I think we will check this out.
The events surrounding the arrest of Agent 5 bring back, for most, memories of the Elliot Sinclair incident. That historic day 10 years ago could have turned out much differently if it weren't for Agent 5 of the Temporal Protectorate. After building the first ever functional time machine, only to have the government shelve the project because it was considered too dangerous, Sinclair decided to sidestep the politicians and build his own temporal transporter. Years later, when the Sorolans made contact with Earth to offer us a place in the symbiotry of peaceful beings, the xenophobic scientist suddenly found himself with a new purpose. Fearing an alien invasion, he tried to convince the public that the Sorolans were not what they appeared to be. But this endeavor met with little success. Frustrated, exasperated, and on the verge of insanity, Sinclair formulated a plan to make Earth a more difficult target for the Sorolans. On the day of the Sorolan ambassador's arrival, he sent each of his 3 robot minions back in time to change the course of history. The first he sent to create a nuclear scare that would prevent world unification and prolong the Cold War. The second was to destroy the Morimoto Mars colony and make it look like the work of an alien race. And the third Sinclair sent to kill Dr. Enrique Castillo, the individual who was most influential in convincing humanity of the benefits of joining the symbiotry. His backup plan, should his robots have failed, was to assassinate the Sorolan delegate. It was our good fortune that Agent 5 was on duty at the Temporal Security Annex that day. He detected the temporal distortions, stopped each of the androids, and then apprehended Sinclair himself. That fateful morning made a hero of Agent 5 and spawned the blockbuster holoflick, The Journeyman Project. Elliot Sinclair was put on trial and found guilty of all charges. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on Vega Thalon and hasn't been heard from since.
That was wonderful. So that was not only a fine summary of the events of the first game, but it also revealed that the Journeyman Project is considered to be a holoflick. And that's right, who played us in the holoflick? I'm assuming that they're framing the entire first game, the experience of playing the first game, as the experience of watching the holoflick. So that was the product, and now we're back in reality. We're not playing a game this time. Lexi said, "We sent past Gage to the future and to save us, and future Gage allowed himself to get arrested." Right. The only photo of Sinclair. I'm not sure if that newsreader is a professional actor. The acting in this game series so far is varied in its quality. Sinclair's actor is certainly a professional actor, and he's one of 2 we recognize from Star Trek The Next Generation so far. 2 of the characters in game number 3 are played, I think, by more seasoned actors than they were in this game. There's no supplemental material for that story. I guess that's just there so that we could do a recap. Or maybe it's there for the people who didn't play the Journeyman Project 1 to make this game a little more accessible. Okay, let's look at symbiotry technology discussions.
INN will return after word from our sponsor.
Another sponsor message.
La peinture fraîche.
Ah, oui.
Jote Latzande. Sasta Gorst.
Is that Sir Roland, perhaps?
If you hadn't understood those important messages, you would have just
Wet Pain.
screwed up your best suit,
The Flippity Van Van.
driven off of a cliff,
Cheap Meat.
been poisoned,
Restaurant smoking in the lobby.
and peed your pants on a foreign planet. Yes, for all those reasons and more, there's the Omniglot DM dual-mode translator biochip from Samco. Just pop the Omniglot DM into any standard biotech interface and voila! No more frustration! No more confusion! The Omniglot DM instantly translates the written and spoken forms of any known language. It does it all! The Omniglot DM Translator Biochip from Semco. Get it today!
Samco Translator Biochip available at Frugal's and other fine stores for a low price of $199.90. Or order over ShopNet. Product order code 689-22378. 689-22378. Order now.
Kip from Napoleon Dynamite looking over the glasses and jotting down the number. Looks like we're gonna need one of those too. Good call, Lexi. You totally predicted that. Lexi's always right. Now that's a little bit more expensive than the Cheese Girl. Available at Frugal's and other fine stores, or order through ShopNet. Product order code 378. All right, now on to whatever we were going to do earlier.
The heads of ministry will continue to meet with Symbiotry representatives today in the Assembly Hall of the United Ministry Complex. These talks were requested by several member races as a forum in which to discuss the place of time travel technology in the symbiotry of peaceful beings. Today marks the beginning of the third week of negotiations, yet there is still no end in sight. Sarah Michaels is standing by at the United Ministry Complex with a report.
Frugal's is a cheap burger place a bit south of me. Oh, fortunate. It's a good name, but maybe not for food. I mean, it's good to get food that's cheap as long as the quality doesn't ramp too closely to that. All right, next.
Thank you, Mark. The main factor protracting the discussions is the inability of the symbiotry to decide what should be done with the technology. The representatives have formed three distinct factions whose strongly opposing views have caused them to remain tenaciously entrenched in a deadlock. While one group believes we are committing the unforgivable act of hoarding a vital technology, a second supports the symbiotry tenet that each race has sovereignty over its own technologies. The third contingent, which has grown in strength since the arrest of Agent 5, contends that time travel represents a threat to every race of the symbiotry and should be destroyed altogether. Even though most attending races strongly disagree with humanity's sole ownership of the technology, our heads of ministry refuse to acknowledge their arguments, citing its inevitable misuse as their foremost concern. Therefore, barring symbiotry action, it is unlikely that the status of time travel as a proprietary technology of Earth will change.
We go into some detail on this one too. We have a burger-related discussion going on here. Good old diner burger. Well, this is interesting. This may shine a little bit more light on what I'm guessing is going to be the motive for this person's framing of us. The first game was about political motives, namely Sinclair's. Sinclair's goal was to prevent Earth from making contact with any other species. He was xenophobic, if you like. Now the political issue is, what should time travel be for? And a similar opinion seems to exist that time travel should not be used ever. That could be a motive to frame Gage and demonstrate that time travel will too often be abused to be warranted, right? And so to give their political stance on that some popularity, they might wish to frame us. We also think we might have a lead on the idea that whoever did try to frame us is not human. The Sorolans are the only other race that we've heard of in this universe. However, the Sorolans are at the center of the symbiotry of peaceful beings to which humanity was invited, which implies that there are other races. We just don't know of them yet. I assume that they're common knowledge, but they haven't been mentioned in the game or anything. So appeal for sharing, time travel. Appeal for denial, time travel. Appeal for... I'm assuming that means time travel. Let's head through these.
The opinion originally held by the majority of races represented at the talks is that time travel technology is an invaluable tool for self-discovery and, as such, should not be denied to any race. However, the Loxoni abandoned this position last week in favor of destroying the technology. Presumably, this sudden change of opinion was due in large part to the arrest of Agent 5, an unfortunate illustration of the danger of time travel.
That's what I was talking about. And right there it is. This is the first new species we've heard about, the Loxoni. Biologically unlike anything known to humanity, the Loxoni are perfectly adapted for life on a rogue, multi-orbital planetoid. As their homeworld careens through deep space from one solar system to the next, changes in gravity and temperature stretch and crack its tortured surface, creating gaping fissures leading deep into its crust. It is these hellish caverns that the Loxoni lovingly refer to as home. Though they live in total darkness, the Loxoni have highly developed ultraviolet sight, which allows them to navigate the caves and to communicate via changing light patterns which emanate from between the rocky plates that cover their body. They have the ability to focus these beams of UV light for long-range communication and for identifying various types of minerals, which is the mainstay of their diet. The powerful projecting mandibles of the Loxoni serve to both crush their food and clear passages through the caverns. They also often use their mandibles for other labor-intensive tasks, although they have several prehensile appendages tucked away between their plates. They lack the benefit of hearing. Medical records show that they once had eardrums, but are very sensitive to sonic vibrations. The Loxoni are highly moralistic and very social beings living in tight-knit communities which share all the responsibilities of daily life, including raising their young. They're also very religious. Loxoni creation accounts tell of a lone supreme being who fashioned the entire universe, but feeling it an empty act, decided to give the rocks life so that its beauty could be appreciated. One very likely explanation for their beliefs is the lack of a single other life form on their planet. Obviously, the Loxoni's presence there is a great mystery to everyone but themselves. The Loxoni technological revolution was born of necessity. Increasing population and changing conditions in the planet's core forced them to seek new ways to survive in their environment. The first anti-gravity vehicles were developed for surveying the massive crevasses for food, shelter, and other basic needs. From there, it was a small step into space, where the Loxoni discovered that they are not alone. Those next and previous buttons should be switched. You can make a case for that, but then they wouldn't fit together like this into a rectangle. Home planet, Loxon. Rogue, multi-orbital planetoid. What a cool little sci-fi species, you know? Atmosphere gravity, methane, and ammonia. Not oxygenated. Ideal temperature, 18 below 0 Celsius. Plus or minus 100 degrees. Which really is quite a range for a species to be able to tolerate. Sensory perception, sight, UV band 6, and vibration sensitivity. Communication, changing light patterns, gestures, writing. Preferred diet, minerals. A little vague, but you know. Transport, prefix 116. Transport, prefix 116. I wonder what that means. I wonder if that's something that might be a clue for us. I think we've made up our minds. Kill them all. Yeah, you're right. Beep. I don't know if that's within our power.
The opinion originally held by the majority of races represented at the talks.
Okay, let's move on.
The Dorloon and Zangtrakar, on the other hand, have continued to cling tightly to their convictions. They're of the opinion that this technology is far too important to be buried because of paranoia. Time travel, the Zangtrakar argue, is like any other powerful tool. It represents a danger only if the user doesn't have the insight to take the proper precautions. And if care is taken, there should be no reason whatsoever to fear what should be the greatest advance the symbiotry has ever known.
Okay. Lexi says minerals, so not only do they use their mandibles to crush food and dig, the digging is basically eating. Yeah, they're a little bit like Gorons in that way, I think. Maybe. Right? So it looks like we have 2 more races to learn about. The Dorlun. That's a lovely looking planet, at least in our spectrum. These slow-moving, docile creatures are super intelligent by human standards, and in fact spend most of their time contemplating, theorizing, and intellectualizing. With themselves, that is. The Dorlun have complex, multi-lobal brains, each lobe of which is capable of carrying on a completely different line of thought, and even possessing different personalities. The Dorlun can, according to latest analyses, be thinking of about 34 things at the same time. Some of the species will use this range to accomplish a variety of tasks simultaneously. The majority consider this frivolous, however, and often devote almost all lobes to the same matter. Gray matter. I mean, some of the lobes may even be contemplating themselves or the other lobes at work. The amount of geometrical intellectual activity at any given moment is staggering, outperforming most known computers. Doesn't the human brain outperform most known computers, depending on how you reckon? Steve, are you a Dorlu? Do you think the N is the pluralization? Oh, I see. That was a typo. All right. Well, I'm glad you got the umlaut in there. A lot of accents used in these species names. I don't suppose they were included in the native versions of any of them. It is not surprising that the Dorlun spend so much time thinking that they accomplish little else in the physical world. They have evolved past the need for written or spoken language and rely solely on telepathy. Telepathic communication with Dorlun can prove an overwhelming and even painful barrage of thought for other species, should the Dorlun involve more than a few lobes in a conversation. Thus, they are constantly practicing the art of singular, linear thought for the purposes of diplomatic discourse. Buddy. My message to Buddy is... For all their vast intellectual and philosophical achievements, the Dorlun are surprisingly primitive in their technology, as it is a low priority for them. When the Symbiotry discovered them in Earth year 1389 AD, they had not even achieved interstellar travel. Nonetheless, they are invaluable problem solvers and philosophers. It is thought that they may have evolved from groups of intelligent organisms somehow bonding together to form one. Thus, they are quite capable of keeping themselves entertained, as they are never truly alone. Buddy responds with a That's good. Thank you. But to be a Dorlu of the Dorlun makes sense. The Dorlun lifespan is about 200 to 250 Earth years, and they reach physical and mental maturity at around 50 Earth years. Their nutritional needs are satisfied by the microbe-rich glutinous solution that covers 96% of their native world's surface. They need little shelter and no sunlight. They do not see as we understand it, but are able to sense molecular densities around them through a complex series of electron radiatory organs located about the body. They hear in much the same way, interpreting complex particle movements. Though their wisdom and thought are universally respected, no one can really claim to fully understand these gentle sentients. That's an elegant term. Their true motivations and desires remain a mystery. This is fascinating. I'll hold my comments for now. We have more to read. Home planet, Hur, second planet of Orpheus solar system. Atmosphere gravity, hydrogen, carbon dioxide, not too far off from ours, at least by comparison to the... I forgot the name already. The Loxoni. Ideal temperature 43 Celsius, plus or minus 30, so they don't want to freeze. Sensory perception. electro-radiatory echoing, auditory particle wave detection, extreme touch sensitivity, communication, telepathy, form manipulation and detection. Preferred diet mostly vegetarian, some fish and fowl. Transport prefix 361. I forget what the transport prefix for the Loxoni was, but I think it was under 200. Like 166 or 177, something like that. Okay.
The Dorloon and Zang Trakar, on the other hand.
One more. Zang Trakar. This is one of the more suspicious members of the Symbiotry. They are archetypal pragmatists and are members of the Symbiotry only because they feel it may profit them. For this reason, their membership is often a subject of dispute among the other races. And if this is an image of their planet, it seems to have at least one moon, or maybe a neighboring planet with another moon, or maybe they live on a moon. And it seems like there's a vague shape of another large sphere in the background, but that might just be an illusion. As of yet, however, the Zang Trakar have taken no provocative actions that would lead to forcible banishment from the Symbiotry. To humans, the Zang Trakar appear much like hyperactive insects, always chattering and scheming, or so it would seem. They share only what they do not need, but there is often a price. Their technology is highly advanced, and it was their scientists who originally pioneered thought field articulation mechanics. Aside from humans, they have most actively pursued time travel technologies, though more often than not, their experiments have ended disastrously. The Zang Trakar are a prolific race, and they reproduce spontaneously by fragmentation. Thus, previous wars have actually increased their population. They're highly resistant to extreme temperatures, but are prone to spontaneous combustion in oxygen-based atmospheres. Luckily, their skills have allowed them to perfect highly durable and efficient environmental suits and chambers for the purposes of exploration and diplomacy. They see and hear much like humans, except in much higher bandwidths. To us, their speech sounds like indiscriminate screeches and clicks. Thus, translators are needed, and neither humans nor Zang Trakar can articulate the other's language. And I think that apostrophe, that particular one, goes before the S, but I guess you could debate it. Don't most creatures share only what they do not need? Yeah, maybe. I guess it could be a point of emphasis. How does this sound familiar? Home planet, Praxis. Fourth planet of Vergaus solar system. Atmosphere gravity helium, 0.75 G. Ideal temperature 3 Celsius, plus or minus 50, a little cooler. But they have resistance to extreme temperatures. Sensory perception, sight indigo band to UV band 3. I noticed the indigo, more ultraviolet looking light on their planet. So I guess we were looking at a planet. Taste, smell, auditory. But that is a high bandwidth range. Our hearing range goes all the way down to about 50 to 100, I would say. And we can hear, some humans can hear higher than 15 kilohertz, I think, but that is very, very high. That's like higher than all of our our S's and I forget the name for sounds that sound like the letter S, sibilances. Tom, Praxis, so they are from Klingon space. Yes, Praxis sounded familiar to me for that reason as well. And their transport prefix is 570. Okay.
The Dorloon and Zang Trakar, on the other hand, have continued to cling
Their
tightly
speech
to
reminds
their
me of the speech of an alien race often
They're
called
of the
waspish in a
opinion
sci-fi
that this
series. Oh
technology
yes, I think I might know the
is
one you
far too
mean.
important to be buried because
Okay, Symbiotry. Now I was wondering what this shape was, because it was featured in the news stories, and I guess it represents the Symbiotry. This is just a quick paragraph. The Symbiotry of peaceful beings, also referred to as the Symbiotry, is a consortium of peaceful races from throughout the galaxy who have come together for the purpose of sharing technology and culture. Earth was admitted into the symbiotry in November of 2318. It took until November? Or was that just when the first game occurred? I forget. I thought it was September. But anyway, there are a few dates thrown around there.
The Dorloon and Zhang
Thank you,
Fakar.
lady.
Perhaps Brandon Farlink, the Dorloon emissary, stated the feelings of these two races most eloquently. At long last, he said, we can all be in touch with our pasts. Each race can now know the truths of its history. No longer must time be wasted with painstaking research and endless conjecture, only to arrive at an uncertain understanding of the events that shaped history. The answers, all the answers, lie within our reach if only we have the will to grasp for them.
I thought this might have been the voice of the lady who was doing the news broadcast just now, but it sounds a lot like Agent 3's voice, too. I think the guy came back to offer it to Earth in September. Yes? I forget. Also, how did we get that video footage of Sinclair firing his gun? Because that shouldn't have ever have happened in any permutation. And it said that that was archival footage from our suit, so I guess our entire journey was being recorded as well. Which is cool, we can get video recordings from alternate timelines. That would be a source of temptation, wouldn't it? Goodness. Then you know paperwork bureaucracy. Okay. Is that the end of that? No, that's just the appeal for... Was that just the appeal for sharing, or was that the appeal for sharing and dismantling?
The third viewpoint,
No, it wasn't.
which was originally held only by the Unwa,
So if that's the third, then I guess denial is the second.
despite being recently abandoned by the Kryn, two of humanity's staunchest supporters, the Sorolans and the Sar, have continued to defend our right to autonomy over time travel technology. Like those that favor dismantling it, these two races would rather leave their past buried than risk losing it altogether. But unlike the others, the Sorolans and Sar believe that humanity harbors a maturity beyond its years and can be entrusted with preserving the sanctity of history.
Okay. I wonder what this mention of the Kryn was for. I guess the Kryn used to agree with them and now they don't? I'm not sure what exactly the words denial and sharing mean. Anyway, I'm looking forward to hearing more about the Sorolans, because they're the race with whom we initially made peace, but let's go in order. The Kryn. The Kryn are one of the most recent additions to the symbiotry. The circumstances of their induction, are quite unique. When the symbiotry discovered them on their aquatic homeworld centuries ago, they were a non-tool using race, having not naturally developed any opposable or prehensile limbs. What, were they blobs? However, because the Kryn were deemed to be highly intelligent and mentally evolved, the symbiotry decided, not unanimously, to grant them the use of prosthetic appendages, should they so desire. In an effort to expand their role in this newly discovered universe, the Kryn accepted this artificial advancement, and have since continued their pursuit of new advances to assert their place in the universe. The Kryn can be likened most to the dolphins of Earth, possessing streamlined bodies, which allow them to glide through their fluid environment. I have no limbs and I must tool. Because of their environmental needs, there are now liquid tanks at all symbiotry and embassy facilities to accommodate Kryn emissaries. The Kryn's sight is based on sensitivity to Klegmar radiation, which occurs naturally on their homeworld. In addition to their innate senses, their cybernetic implants further extend their sensory awareness. Their hearing is very similar to that of humans, and they often communicate vocally within a human audible frequency range. Home planet, Aquion, second planet of Danmar solar system. Atmosphere, water, oxygen. Carbon dioxide. So they are quite a lot like us, overall. despite the differences. Ideal temperature, 10 degrees Celsius plus or minus 10. Sight, Klegmar radiation. Acute smell, taste, and auditory. And they still have a higher sound range than we do, but not extremely higher, not prohibitively higher. They speak in the 11 kilohertz range. That's still quite high. Preferred diet, fish, mostly small crustaceans. Transport prefix 272. They're just kind of porpoisey.
Despite being recently abandoned by the
Sorolans. The oldest race of the symbiotree, these noble creatures were also instrumental in its inception. They're widely respected throughout the galaxy for their wisdom and science, as well as their generosity and foresight. They possess keen, prescient abilities, but do not allow precognition to affect their actions or the natural progression of streams. Instead, they are watchers, learners, and strong advocates of self-determination. They will always offer sage advice, but will never intervene in another race's affairs. They seem to share a particular bond with humans, the youngest and newest race of the symbiotree, finding them a most promising and precocious race, despite their brief and impassioned lives. I wonder who wrote this. In case you're wondering, it's taking my clicks on the next button a while to process. Oh, maybe it's that I'm clicking and then there's change and then the text doesn't advance until I move the cursor. The biological lifespan of the average Sorolan is not known, but most Sorolans choose to exist for about 3,000 to 5,000 Earth years. Once they tire of life, they will gestate a new organism and pass all their accumulated thought, memory, and wisdom on to the offspring in a long and quiet ritual which culminates in their deaths. Thus, one could say that Sorolans actually never die, they just change bodies every few thousand years. That's something I didn't know at all about them. That's fascinating. And very attractive. In addition to their prescient and telepathic awarenesses, the Sorolans have heightened sensory perception of space, sound, and energy. They perceive light and particle radiation in all frequencies, as well as sound and pressure waves, subspace activity, and even temporal shifts. The Sorolans are physically quite similar to humans, only much larger. This has led to some speculation about evolutionary relationships between the two species, but the Sorolans are hesitant to discuss this subject, preferring that we discover our past ourselves. That is almost shiver-inducing as a bit of prose, isn't it? These noble creatures, no bias here. I was about to say, they do have quite a physical as well as a cultural majesty about them. Nonetheless, Lexi says, so I'm feeling some tilt here. One group wants time travel to be shared with them, and they're kind of bug-like and hard to understand. The ones who choose to allow humans to do what they wish with time travel are noble creatures, and dolphins with cyborg hands. Cyrolans. Home planet, Cyrol. 5th planet of Galena star system. Atmosphere, oxygen, hydrogen, carbon. Pretty close to Earth once again. 25 Celsius is their ideal temperature. Very humanish. Sensory perception, light particle radiation, subspace and temporal rift sensitive, which is quite interesting. And auditory. That idea of teasing the idea that, and again, their auditory range is right within human auditory range, but they can't hear as high as humans. This idea that Sorolans and humans might have some ancestral join you almost want to slap them for doing that to us. Communication, telepathic, vocal, and writing. Preferred diet, seafood. Some reptiles, fruit and vegetables. Fruits and vegetables. And Sorolin's transport prefix is 707.
Despite being recently abandoned by the
The SAR. Oh, check that planet out. What are those straight lines? Big sip of water. The SAR are almost unanimously considered to be the most whimsical members of the symbiotree. They are a heterogeneous race ranging in length from 0.25 meters to as large as 6 meters. These size variances are completely overlooked by the SAR, and they are very fraternal with each other. Presumably, the most unusual trait of the SAR is their ability to adhere to any surface in any orientation, gravity or no. They are easy to spot at a symbiotree meeting. They're the ones sitting on the floors and walls. This phenomenon is best explained as a kind of organic magneticism, in which their cells modify their natural magnetic polarities to complement whatever material they come in contact with. Not surprisingly, Saurian architecture is a spectacle to behold, as every surface has been prepared to be seen and occupied from multiple orientations. Also not surprising is the Saurian predisposition for practical jokes, especially at the expense of other races. The SAR are highly social and very curious about other races and technologies, though they respect other races' right to privacy and strongly maintain their own. They are generally considered to be vain and are often seen adorned in ornate and extravagant outfits. Their decorating tastes are equally lavish, and they have a palate for precious collectibles from other cultures. Though native Saurian art, architecture, and above all, festivities are renowned throughout the galaxy. Unlike many races, they have also advanced their biotechnologies to the point where they no longer need food to survive, and are in effect completely self-sufficient. However, they still enjoy the sensory and social rewards of consumption, and are always seeking new and more extravagant cuisines. And VGA's come to visit as well this morning. Hello, VGA. Thank you for popping by. We are just enjoying some fine science fiction world building here. And we're right in the middle of it. I'd give you the backstory, but I think if you want that, then you'll stay and watch, and if you can go either way, then no harm done. So Lalum had said earlier, is the transport prefix basically an area code? Maybe. I think it might just be something that identifies a race. Maybe something that we should take note of. VGA said, I had the original Journeyman project on Macintosh. That's right, I remember learning that, and I was going to make a note to check it out sometime. Just from a historical interest standpoint, I think it would be great, but I haven't done it yet. And as you can see, we've moved on to Buried in Time. I don't know if you've ever played that at all, but now I recall that you'll be able to appreciate what's going on a little more because of that. Let's continue with our reading. The SAR locomote via a multitude of pseudopodia radiating from all directions of their body. Their sensory perceptions are highly acute, and they can see and hear in a broad range of frequencies, allowing for communication with almost any other race. Nope, never tried this one. There's a lot to it. We've spent this whole hour reading this backstory and exposition, and I'd missed the location in which you're supposed to do that for our entire first 2 hours of gameplay. So we were out there exploring with much less to go on than we are now gaining. Home planet SAR, 8th planet of Orestes solar system. Atmosphere nitrous oxide and a lot of gravity. 27 Celsius. Sight IR band 5 to UV band 3. That's quite wide. That's the widest we've seen. Smell, taste, auditory. 10 hertz to 15 kilohertz. Wow, so they can hear something that's vibrating only 10 times per second. Communication, tone-based vocalization, and music-like writing. Preferred diet, self-sufficient. And transport prefix 930. the SAR. All right. This is wondrous.
Despite being recently abandoned.
Okay, and that's
by
it. Actually, I thought there was another race,
two
but
of
no.
humanity's. In fact, they suggest that our closeness to our violent past makes us even better suited to manage time travel, as the dire consequences of the misuse of technology still stain our racial memory. Unfortunately, theirs is a minority opinion. The prevailing response to this argument is that Earth's record with time travel speaks for itself. In just 10 years, there have already been incidents of deliberate historical sabotage, the latest of which allegedly involving an agent of the Temporal Security Agency.
I think that TSA went by before and we didn't read the blurb on it. Let's just read the paragraph. The Temporal Security Annex of the Crime Intervention Commission, also known as the Temporal Security Agency, right, so it does mean agency, they're different things, is the government headquarters for time travel activity. From this top-secret compound, elite agents safeguard history from illicit time travelers and embark on historical research missions. Oh, and there is more. And the buttons are differently styled. Oh, maybe that means they're not available. All right.
In fact, they suggest our benefactors, however, dismiss the Elliott, Sinclair, and Gage Blackwood incidents as aberrant acts by disturbed individuals, rather than a weakness of humanity as a whole. And they ask, as a sign of good faith and trust in the newest member of the symbiotree, that the future of time travel technology be left to our discretion.
Our discretion? Does that mean that we are humans? Lexi's filling VGA in. That's right. We're learning about the alien races that want us to share and those who don't mind us denying them the information. The author really wants to keep time travel to humans, as these alien races are written about in some glowing terms compared to the others. Okay, so let's read about the third standpoint next.
The third viewpoint, which was originally held only by the Unwa, is that the existence of time travel technology represents a threat to the history of every race in the symbiotree. For this reason, these races feel that all existing time machines should be completely dismantled. Following the arrest of Agent 5, the Loxoni changed their allegiance from petitioning for the release of time travel technology to requesting its destruction.
Okay, I see. So that's the absolutist case for no time travel whatsoever. And the Unwa are the ones who first held that viewpoint. And they got the Loxoni on board as well. Now we know about the Loxoni, let's learn about the Unwa. Little is known about the Unwa. Now that looks like a planet with a moon, doesn't it? And they can only sparsely be generalized about. Every Unwa is different from the others in physiology because each one evolves differently and is in fact always changing. In this respect, they can hardly be classified together as a race at all, as their only shared quality seems to be the ability to change. Not to be confused with shape-shifting organisms, the Unwa modify their physiologies by direct response to immediate environments, as well as by absorption of their other local materials, and it is suspected other creatures. The lifespan and reproduction practices of the Unwa, if any, are a complete mystery to all but them, as are their nutritional, social, and physiological needs. Physiological needs. They are very secretive about their origins and their habits, but are nonetheless valuable contributors to the symbiotree. It is speculated that the Unwa may have been engineered by another race, but this theory cannot be substantiated. The Unwa are nomadic beings, not claiming any homeworld or place of origin. They often travel alone or in clans of 3 to 5, but are somehow always aware of the locations of others of their kind. They are timid, almost to the point of hermitry, but are quite friendly once they have established trust. Still, their secretive nature makes them paranoid, and they do not like to be in the company of non-Unhwa for extended periods of time. Home planet unknown. Current seat of representation on Hulang, first planet of Orestes solar system. Isn't that the same planet as the same solar system as were inhabited by the last race we read about? The pranksters. Atmosphere gravity not applicable. Ideal temperature 46. Sensory perception varies. Communication varies. Preferred diet unknown. And they do share a transport prefix. That's good. 894.
The third viewpoint, which they were joined by the Kryn, for whom this represents a break in their long-standing tradition of fervently supporting every race's right to sovereignty over its own technologies. The Loksoni now proclaim that if not destroyed, the technology must at the very least be put in the safekeeping of an elder race of the Symbiotry. They cite security as their main concern. Like the others that share their goal, they feel that humanity lacks the necessary discretion to control such a powerful tool. As a side note, it should be mentioned that the Loksoni themselves are among the eldest races of the Symbiotry.
And they're petitioning for an elder race to have control of time travel, which could mean they just want it for themselves. And they're pretending to want it destroyed as a way to bring that about. I don't know, it's possible. Results of negotiations. Is this the end of this story? Let's see what happens.
Despite the arguments made by the Symbiotry envoys, the general opinion of the heads of ministry so far appears unswayed. Michael Rozhenko of the Northwest Asia Collective rebutted that the danger of time travel falling into the wrong hands and being used to change history, however slight, is still too great to even consider releasing the technology. It must be realized that time travel has not only the power to unlock the secrets of history, but also unparalleled potential for destruction. Few could argue that it would be foolish to give such a tool to anyone, regardless of its intended use. On the other hand, it's also too late for it to be destroyed, as was pointed out by Chancellor of Law Rick Allen, when he stated that the technology has already been created and can therefore be recreated. Chancellor Allen emphasized his point by attesting that if all known time travel technology were destroyed and a new time machine built without government knowledge or approval, there would be no way to intervene in the actions of the illicit time traveler. He would have free rein to rewrite history to his liking. Unfortunately, such scenarios are all too likely, as was proven by the Elliot Sinclair incident and the current trial of Gage Blackwood.
And that brings us to the end of the technology discussions. And that little ending brings us to the end of our investigation of all the relevant journalism. We're finally through it. It's taken us another entire hour to get through it. There's a lot there, and we should discuss it just a little more before we plunge back out into our mission sites.